In this video, I'm going to make your jaw drop. You're going to re-question your entire chess skill and reason for being born. This game is one of the best games played of all time. One of the immortal games, and one of the most brilliant games ever. It was played against Levon Aronian, who was 2802, and Vishwanathan Anand, who was 2772. Now, this game revolves around Vishwanathan Anand, as you might see from the thumbnail title, and he basically played one of the greatest games of all time. So, it started with d4. Levon used to play this a lot, along with e4 and c4. And Vishy responded d5. Now, the point of d5 is, these days, if you're going to play the Queen's Gambit accepted, you're going to start with knight f6, e6, and d5. And you play it like this, which is kind of a bit more trendy, I guess. And the point of d5 is, if c4, you're either playing an accepted variation, which is quite common these days, or a Slav, which is much better. So, knight f3, this is still normal theory. It's called the modern line, knight f6, normal development. And here, basically, black has to make a decision. Does he go for the triangle system closed Slav? Does he take? Or even bishop f5 here as a move. This is kind of the normal Slav, I guess. But he chooses e6. And here he already poses a threat. Maybe you can see it. He threats this. So if something like bishop f4, he already has this, say e4 and b5. And even though you have stuff like a4, you're not getting this pawn back. Bishop b4, take, and you're not getting this pawn back. There's just no way. And black is actually winning here. So what does he do to prevent this? He obviously plays e3, just guarding this pawn. And here again, he has a few options. He can play knight d7, bishop d6, or even take right away. So he chooses knight b to d7, a completely normal and reasonable developing move. So here, what are things that stand out? This bishop is closed in, and this bishop is closed in. So what are you going to do with these bishops? This bishop will likely develop either to b2 via b3 and bishop b2, or white will play queen c2, bishop d3, and try to play for e4. And then the bishop will come to g5 or f4, maybe even e3. Well, this bishop here is in every single case going to go to b7. Maybe a6, but it's going to b7. With taking here, so you basically wait until the bishop moves, then you take here, and then you play b5, bishop b7. And this is exactly what happens in the game. D takes, bishop takes, and now b5. And yeah, you can see the b7 square is now free. And after something like bishop d3, which is the most active move, he could play bishop b7 right away, but he chooses to play bishop d6 first. And yeah, this bishop is quite good, and here the position is about equal. White is plus 0.2, but that does not matter at all. So, castles, queen c2, and now bishop b7. Now we see it on the board. And here, black's point is, as you can see, the bishop is kind of blocked in right now. But usually in a normal game, black will play a6 and c5, and this bishop will actually become very, very good and have a huge open diagonal, and also prevent e4, most importantly. And in this position, he could already play e4. But if e4, it's kind of unclear because d5, and you can't really push, so you kind of have to ignore it, and h3. And here just a6 and c5 is coming, and black is kind of chipping away at the center. And if you're not careful, then you could get a position that's not at all comfortable for white. So what happens in the game? He plays a3. a3 is basically just saying, I don't want you to play b4, and I don't want you to play bishop b4. And also, I want to play b4. Perhaps to maybe even get a knight to c5, which would be a wild dream here. So what happens in the game? Rook to c8. He's putting this here, and he is probably looking to play an early c5, maybe even without a6, because with the queen being on this diagonal, c5 is much more dangerous, because you can, let's just say a random move, you can just break open the c file, and you're just winning because of this pin here. So you even have a6 here, and like the knight is maybe coming to d5, and you're just way better here. It's obviously a stupid example, but just to illustrate what's going on here. So rook c8, and now comes a turning point in the game. So if white just plays normally, let's say rook e1, he has c5 immediately, and if he takes here, the thing that I just said, so he has to do something. Like rook d1 is possible, b4 is possible, but the best move here is knight to g5, putting pressure here. Now, what are we going to do against this pawn here? There are a few options. You could play bishop h2 here, but Vishy probably saw this and rejected this idea because of this. And he gets h7 here, not even immediately, f3, knight f6, and e4. He gets the entire center, and even though it seems like black has some attacking potential, he really doesn't. He can also play h6, which is also fair, but knight e4 and bishop b8 has to be played, and you're not really attacking anything here. It's fine, obviously, but it's probably going to be a draw. But here Vishy chooses an insane move. He plays c5, an incredible move, sacrificing this pawn 2 ways and this pawn 2 ways. Now, what do you do here? If, like, let's just say, I don't know, knight takes b5. Seems natural, right? You're attacking this bishop. Now bishop h2. And this is now way stronger, because if he plays f3 here, now you can take, and you see this knight is not here to kind of shield off the queen. So knight b5 is a horrible move. So what do you do here instead? If bishop h5, now h6, kick the knight, you double the pawns, and here you can just take. And point is why you're better here is this pawn is isolated. You can control the square very, very easily. You have a lot of very, very active pieces. And these pawns are doubled. This pawn is a weakness, and this pawn is a weakness. Simple, right? What if he takes on h7 with the bishop? Seems like the best option. Taking with check, right? King h8. And here, even though white is technically better, as you can see, plus 0.4, he has to find a particular line. f4, and now g6. Bishop takes, f takes, queen takes. And here, black is actually defending quite well. Like, he has to play rook d1 here to continue the attack. If he plays something like if you try to lash out, let's just say, I don't know, g4. If you take, there's mate. This has to be good, right? No, rook f7. And what are you doing here? I'm guarding this. I'm guarding everything. If check, I just have rook g7. And I mean, what are you doing here? Nothing. You're just losing your entire attack, and you basically have nothing. So here Levon actually chooses none of this, obviously, because it's bad. He chooses knight h7. Actually, bishop h7 was the best move, but he chooses knight h7. With the point, he wants to take here and just trade off some pieces and then maybe neutralize the attack. But here, Vishy finds the top computer move, which is knight to g4. He's basically copying him. You went knight to g5, now I'm gonna go knight to g4. I'm just copying you attacking this. So what is the plan here? If something like h3, you actually have bishop h2, and now queen h4. And Levon probably rejected h3 because of this exact line, because you have pressure here. And this bishop, look at this bishop. Queen h3 is a threat. Knight f2. This is insane. So here he plays f4. His first big mistake in the game. From just being slightly worse to now being almost losing. Almost -1. So what's the best move here? What do you do? So you should play something like queen h4. Seems good, right? But just h3. And because the king isn't on h1, you don't really have anything here. So you have to play c takes d4. You're attacking the knight with the pin, so obviously takes back. And here what do you do? Again, queen h4 doesn't really work, just h3. And here white is even better. So what do? Bishop c5, an insane move. Not even capturing anything. But now look at these pieces. They are coming in. This knight is strong. This bishop is strong. They're attacking this. Like, what are you gonna do? Bishop e3 doesn't work because this knight is insane, just guarding everything. So, I mean, basically, you kind of have to accept it, which is the best move. And queen e2 has to be played here. Sorry. And this is obviously not over, but queen d4 and simply king h7. And the fact that you have these many pawns here just wins you the advantage here. But what does Levon do? He does not do that. He plays bishop e2. Now this is a real blunder, because I don't know what he was thinking. I mean, this game was a long time ago, but he did probably expected bishop b4. And after bishop d4, king h1, queen h4, he probably thought he just have bishop g4. Queen g4, and he's holding here. And knight f6. And he's not even that much worse here. Like fe6, and you're holding. I mean, you're probably a bit worse, but you could definitely hold this to a draw. But Vishy does not do any of that, even though bishop d4 is the best move. But he plays another insane brilliancy. Knight d to e5. An insane move. Look at this. It makes no sense. If you take now queen d4, and look at this. Smothered mate. Down 12 points of material. But the king is in the corner getting absolutely slaughtered by this knight. So what do you actually do here? I mean, you probably have to take here, which Levon does. But now not takes back immediately, because then you lose the bishop and you don't have anything. So you obviously take here with check. King h1, and now knight g4. And now you have threats here. You have queen h4 coming in. This is insane. And now Levon chooses actually the best move again. I mean, even though he has these two blunders, he's actually defending quite well. Knight f8. And he probably thinks, you know, if he takes, it's probably quite slow. Queen h7. Perhaps I'll get some checks here. But he does not take. Vishy is not a mortal chess player. He plays f5. Blocking out the queen. Giving up this pawn. If you take this pawn, queen h4, you're just getting absolutely slaughtered. If h6, now queen h3 is checkmate. Look at this bishop. This bishop that looked like an absolute bozo. Look at this right here. This bishop looked like an absolute bozo right here, doing nothing. Looking like the worst piece on the board. And now look at this bishop down here. Absolutely beating Levon. Okay, so Levon chooses knight g6. Yeah, I mean, the game is practically over. Vishy just has to find one of two moves. Either king to h7, which is still winning and retains the advantage, or what he played, which is the best move, queen f6. The point is just you want to kick this knight. If the knight moves, you go to h4. Because getting to h4 means mating him. Let's just say, I don't know, let's just say this wasn't available. Like, you can't stop mate here. There's nothing. So, what does he do after queen f6? He tries defending himself. h3. But now simply queen g6. Because if you take the knight, you're getting mated. Look at these bishops. I mean, come on. So, he obviously does not take the knight because he's just not stupid. He's 2800. He's not 500 like you. So he plays queen e2. And what do you do here? You definitely have options. Almost everything is winning. Queen h6 is winning. Rook d8 is winning. Queen h5 is winning. Bishop b6 even is winning. King h7 is winning. What the hell? So, what does Vishy choose? Queen h5. Point is, you have threats. Obviously, this is not a legal move anymore. But queen h3 is threatened. And now comes, after queen e3, the final great move, bishop e3. Now, out of all the brilliancies, this makes the most sense. Because you're simply blocking this queen. And how do you defend this? If you try to sack the rook, because remember you're up in exchange, right? Take, doesn't do anything. Can't take because you're getting mated. This is completely hopeless. So Levon did the nice thing and let himself get mated by queen h2. So that was it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.